Talk, shop, pop, movies.
Ahoy there, this is Derek, the Convicted Cinephile, and if you're a convicted cinephile yourself, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel down below. On my channel, I like to talk, shop, and pop, open that is, movies and physical media. So it is Oscar week. My Oscar week video for today is kind of a spin-off of one I did a few days ago. I did my top 5 movies I love that won 0 Oscars that were nominated for Best Picture. So today I'm going to do the biggest losers in Oscar history. There are 6 films that I have here, most of which physically, that were nominated for 10 or more Oscars that went home empty-handed. So the record is 11-0, or 0-11 I should say. This year Power of the Dog is nominated for 12. It looks like its only win might be for Jane Campion for director, which would be the first time since The Graduate that a movie only wins Best Director, which is crazy in itself. So that's what, 54 years? I was inspired to make this video because I was mentioning how much I love True Grit the other day, and this film went 0 for 10 at the Oscars. Came out in 2010, so it was the 2011 Oscar season. I'm actually going to put up all the nominations here so I don't have to remember and list off each one, because that's an insane, it's 60 plus nominations for 6 movies I gotta memorize, and that ain't gonna happen in half an hour. I'll remember a lot of them, but not all of them. But yeah, like I said, this was 2010. I'm gonna start with this one because I already kind of spoiled it in the other video. It was up for a plethora of things: picture, director, screenplay, supporting actress, actor, a lot of tech awards, cinematography, sound, pretty much everything but visual effects. Damn near. But the interesting thing is, like, why didn't it win anything? How does it get that many nominations and go home empty-handed? Well, I gotta sort of look at what it lost to. And this year was the year of Inception, which took 4 tech Oscars away from this film. And it was the Social Network King's Speech year. So you could say goodbye to Best Actor, Picture, Director, and Screenplays right there. So the only thing this movie really had going for it that it could possibly win was maybe Haley Steinfeld for supporting actress, and I personally would have voted for her. And that might have been even the only thing I would have given this film that year. Maybe cinematography, because I love Roger Deakins, but Inception won that. And at the time, Wally Pfizer was a little overdue, not as much as Roger Deakins in 2010, but he had been nominated for, I want to say, 4 Oscars for Christopher Nolan films, and this was his 4th nomination, and he finally won. So that was the story with True Grit. Next, I'm going to go back in time, and the first film to get nominated for 10 or more Oscars was The Turning Point in 1977. This is the one I don't own. It's not even on Blu-ray in America, which is ridiculous for a movie that's been nominated for 11 Oscars. Yeah, so it's Turning Point, 1977. Nominated for all the things I'm going to list here. Like I said, lots and lots of crap. This movie is kind of forgotten in time. Like, I've never even heard of this movie until I was researching Oscar facts in the past years ago, and I was like, what the hell is this? I've never even heard of it. Because 1977, it was an okay year. A couple of movies came out that year that changed the face of cinema for all time. One of them being Star Wars, which won, I want to say, 6 Oscars, including special achievement awards and such. So there go all your tech categories right there. You had, I almost said 2001, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was nominated for pretty much everything but Best Picture, which was stupid. But it only won cinematography, which when you're going up against Star Wars, I understand that. So that won that one. And then you had Annie Hall, which is the eventual winner of Best Picture, Director, Actress, and Screenplay. So when you think of those films, and you think of this movie that, unless it's your favorite movie and you grew up watching it, you probably never even heard of, because I know I hadn't until I was at least in my late 20s, so 30 years ago. What the hell is it going to win? It has the strongest competition, like, of all time. It's ridiculous. Next, most famously perhaps, in 1985, we had the other 11-0, or I'm sorry, 0-11 loser, Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple. So this is most famous. I haven't even watched this. I've had it for so long. It's an awesome Warner Brothers Digibook Blu-ray. These are like my favorite things ever. Steven Spielberg directed this film, which is kind of weird when it's a film about, very African American things, to have a very white director, even if he's like the top choice in the industry to do it. It'd be frowned upon today. That's all I'm really saying. But yeah, he won the DGA for Best Director. This movie got 11 nominations. Somehow, one of them was not Best Director for Steven Spielberg. So Whoopi Goldberg jokingly said it was a movie that directed itself, which is the same thing I said about Dune this year, because it got 10 nominations and didn't get Best Director somehow. And this wasn't like an absurdly strong year, so it's even stranger that it went home empty-handed. Out of Africa won Best Picture, and I want to say Director as well, among other things. Like I said in the previous video, the 80s, as far as Oscar movies go, is probably the worst decade of all decades. There's just, everything is either cliche Oscar bait, or it's just like, doesn't stand the test of time to an extent that an Oscar winner should. But anyways, yeah, you had Oprah Winfrey getting nominated. You had Whoopi Goldberg in her first film, which is strange that was her first film ever, who would eventually win for Ghost, so that was cool. With the competition that year, it seems impossible that movie didn't win something, especially when Steven Spielberg got snubbed on top of that. So that's probably the weirdest one out of all of them. Then you go all the way into the early 21st century, and you got Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York from 2002. I remember at the time I was working at the movie theater, everyone's like, oh, Scorsese's finally going to win. He's finally going to get that Best Director award, and I believe the Golden Globes gave it to him, among other things. But yeah, this went 0 for 10. You had, here's the list again of nominations, but pretty much anything a movie needs. Daniel Day-Lewis seemed like an obvious winner for Best Actor. I kind of wish he would have won for it, but he has 3 Oscars for other films. So it's kind of cool they gave it to Adrian Brody that year for The Pianist, because that movie is actually really, really good. And speaking of The Pianist, that's the movie that ended up winning Best Director and Screenplay and Actor. So how close did that come to winning Best Picture? And the movie that this lost Best Picture to was Chicago, which is the first great Hollywood musical in God knows how long. I personally love Chicago. And that's the one that took picture, all the tech awards it could possibly get, like sound mixing and art direction and costumes. It was a weird year. And then cinematography that year was Road to Perdition, which was also nominated for, I want to say, 6 Oscars, but not Best Picture or Director. So yeah, it's like, what could Gangs of New York have won when you look in the year that it happened? And honestly, I don't know. I think Daniel Day-Lewis was its best shot. Maybe the song from U2, but that song isn't like amazing or anything. Yeah, it's a weird one. And then you go ahead another 11 years and you got a movie that I actually really like, but a lot of people kind of crap on it nowadays. American Hustle, 0 for 10, yet again. This movie was nominated for tons of stuff. I'll show the list again, including all 4 acting categories, which was the second year in a row that happened for David O. Russell's films, the other being Silver Linings Playbook, which was the first time that had happened in a very long time. So the fact that it happened 2 years in a row to the same director is very impressive. That was 2013, yes. So what else came out in 2013? We have 12 Years a Slave, which was basically destined to win Best Picture from the moment of its inception. And then Gravity, which is the tech sweeper directing masterpiece. So you got this movie going up against those two, essentially. You have 4 acting nominations there. Maybe one of them could win. I actually really like Amy Adams in this movie, as far as her leading roles go. Either way, they all lost. And I'm a huge Christian Bale guy, so I was kind of hoping he'd win a second Oscar. The best shot this film had was, I think, original screenplay, and I'll have to double check what won that year for original screenplay. Oh, Her. I think it was Her from Spike Jonze won original screenplay. And then again, it happened just a couple years ago to the master himself, Martin Scorsese, the king of having 0 for 10 losers at the Oscars now, with The Irishman, which is fantastic. I've yet to watch this Criterion release of it, but it is a fantastic movie if you got like 3.5 hours to sit and watch a movie. But yeah, this was one of those movies that even during the nomination season, it was like, yes, it's going to get nominated for everything, except for Robert De Niro somehow, which was the weirdest thing. He was great in that movie. But yeah, it's like it was an obvious nominee for, the big things, picture, director, screenplay, visual effects, because of its ridiculously good de-aging, at least as far as their, faces go, not so much the way the 70-year-old men are walking and talking to each other. You can tell it's old Robert De Niro's walking around with young Robert De Niro's face on it. But it was very well done nonetheless. And then you got your editing, your dual supporting actor nominations for Joe Pesci and Al Pacino, which was awesome. But that year was the year of Parasite and 1917 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So when you're going up against those heavy hitters and Jojo Rabbit also, which ended up being the original screenplay winner, what could this movie possibly win? Could it squeak out a supporting actor nomination win with 2 nominees in the same category, which is pretty hard to do unless one of them has just been winning everything as the whole season, which wasn't the case. And it wasn't going to win picture and director because that was going to go to either 1917 or Parasite. There was nothing really there for it to win. You know, visual effects, it lost to 1917, and if it wasn't going to lose to that, it was going to lose to Avengers. It's kind of funny when you look at these movies with all this industry support throughout the award season, and you look back at what they could have beaten to win at least one award, it almost makes sense that they didn't win anything, with maybe the exception of Color Purple, and that's just because I'm not as privy to the films that year. To wrap it up, I feel bad for these movies for having the records of biggest losers at the Oscars. I still love them, you know, it doesn't make them any worse than they are. They're great movies regardless of how many Oscars they win. But it's just kind of funny when you look back and make sense of it, of why these films are the biggest losers of the Oscar season. So pretend that there is a copy of Turning Point on Blu-ray on here, and those are the 6. Let's see if Dune or Power of the Dog can end up being one too, since they're the only 2 movies that got 10 or more nominations. I don't think Dune's going to lose everything, and I highly doubt Power of the Dog is losing director. My name is Derek, the Convicted Cinephile. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Talk, shop, pop, movies.